Hi, Alice here. What am I dealing with? I need to know what to do to manage this plant. Is this an aggressive weed or a native wildflower? I'll be covering what you need to know about Florida betony, also known as rattlesnake weed, and how to manage it in your yard. Look for gardening tips and also a plant information card. Stories frequently have two sides, positives and negatives. That's the case for Florida betony. On the positive side, this plant is edible for humans. Yes, I checked it out. References below. And it is very prolific. So if you have a meadow or an area that you're calling a freedom yard, then this might be a native plant that you want to put in that area. It is a wildflower, and using it in a meadow is an aggressive spreader if you think that's an advantage. Also, it is not affected by mowing. Another positive about this plant is it is a pollinator and a butterfly attractor. Having it in your yard in a meadow area where it can grow and bloom would be a positive if that's what you want to attract the butterflies and the pollinators. There are two parts of the plant for eating. First is the tuber. This is an underground part and it has segments on it. This is how the plant gets its nickname, rattlesnake weed, because the segments remind people of the rattlers on the tail of a rattlesnake. This tuber, if you harvest it in the early spring, can be crunchy in salads in place of a radish. You can also pickle it. The other part of the plant you can eat are the green leaves. Harvesting in early spring is ideal. That reminds me of what's recommended for dandelions. You can saute it with vegetables. The other side of the story of Florida betony is its aggressive weed designation. Most of the southern part of the United States consider this plant an aggressive weed and would not be encouraging you to add it. Just a quick walk around the roots of the dwarf firebush, which has died back for the winter. See all the green thriving foliage? That's Florida betony. Originally was thought to be endemic to Florida. By endemic, they mean found only in Florida. But in the early 1940s and through the 1950s, reports of this plant in other parts of the southern United States started to come to light. Now the range is from Virginia all the way through southern states across Texas, and even California. Its USDA Hardiness Zone is considered 7 to 10, a wide range where it grows and thrives. What else do we know about this plant? It's considered a broadleaf perennial and long-lived. It's an herb and in Florida, a cool season herb. This plant is part of the mint family. If you know anything about mint plants, they spread all over the place. That gives you a tip about why this plant is such an aggressive spreader. Soil requirements. For soil, it does fine in clay, in loam, in high organic, and in part sand loamy soil like I have in my North Florida garden. Adaptable to different pH ranges from acidic to neutral to slightly alkaline. Sun requirements, it's amazingly adaptable, thrives in full sun, partial shade, and full shade. For water requirements, it prefers a moister soil, but it does thrive in moderate water conditions and occasional dry conditions. Considered a wildflower, blooming time is spring to early summer. The bloom colors range from whites to pinks to violets. The bloom structure or form is tubular, 3 to 6 clusters of tubular flowers along the plant stalk, and the plant height about 1 foot to 1.5 feet. It's very slender, no more than 6 inches or a half foot wide. The blooms produce some seed, but from what I've learned in the references below, the primary means for propagation of this plant is its extensive rhizomal root system, and you can see the roots of the plants tend to get intertwined. The tubular part of the plant puts off linear threads. Here's an example of the tubular parts of the plant. Each point of the segment is producing a rhizome, and that rhizome has some of these fin-like roots coming off of it. Gardening tip: early fall to late fall, you may find this plant popping up all over your garden beds and in your lawn. That's its time of max emergence. What's recommended for removal in your garden bed as opposed to your lawn is hand weeding. That may be concerning for a lot of gardeners, especially senior gardeners, because it means getting down and using a hand pick like I use to dig deep down into the soil in order to get both the white rhizomes and also the tubular part out of the soil. This is quite a patch of Florida Betony all around the base of this dwarf mulberry tree. You can see the runners. Here is one of the tubers, these plants, all intertwined. Look at all those tubers in there. What I'll do is I'll take up as much of this top part that's all matted together, and then I'm going to go back and go through the soil and make sure that I haven't missed anything that could easily propagate itself. Okay, here is an older tubular. You can see the segments. The plant can propagate itself from just segments of the rhizome left in the soil. Also, if you till your soil, you're doing construction and having soil brought in from other places, you could be spreading the tubular part of this plant around your yard. If you're concerned, consider an herbicide. What's tricky about using an herbicide is because this plant is a broadleaf perennial, a lot of people think, oh, I will just get a herbicide and spray it on the leaves. Well, it'll kill the leaves, but it's not the leaves where the propagation takes place. The propagation takes place with all of the rhizomes and the tubular part of the roots. So what are you going to do about those? There are some systemic herbicides that you may be able to use. Because there are a lot of changes in herbicides and their effectiveness, I recommend that you consult with your cooperative extension. Call your agent or go in and discuss what herbicides might be best. Recommendations are not to use herbicides in your garden area where you have other plants growing, because even when you think you don't have any wind, it's easy for the herbicide, especially if you're spraying it through an applicator, to drift to neighboring plants. I have friends who've tried using herbicide in their gardens and have wiped out a lot of their favorite plants that were surrounding the area they were trying to treat. Now that I know the plant characteristics and what to expect, it's time to get back to my winter weeding projects and work on removing the Florida Betony plants from my garden beds. The ones in the lawn, I'm going to leave and see what happens. My expectation is that I'll be able to manage the spread in my garden beds. I do not expect that I'll be able to eradicate this plant. Certainly not this year, not next year, maybe not for years to come. But at least I know how I can manage it effectively and possibly enjoy some of the culinary benefits that this native wildflower has. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If so, thumbs up, greatly appreciated. Comment if you have experience and would like to share. We all benefit. Here's some videos you might want to watch next. Subscribe if you've not yet subscribed. Garden Yay! See you in the next video.